1, 2. Okay, I think we're all here. So I'm going to open the regular meeting of the City Council for November 30th. Before we get to business, there are a couple of people we'd like to remember. Bill Carlson passed away. He was a South End resident and a veteran. He's not native to Newburyport. He's from Illinois, but he served in the Navy, earned a Bronze Star. He was an active member of the community in the South End, and he passed away last month. We also lost Kim Kudum. Many of us knew Kim. She had been battling cancer for a while. She grew up in Raleigh, the old Raleigh, sort of 60s rural era, but moved here over 30 years ago. A lot of us met her through community work. She was with Font, Friends of Newburyport Trees. She wrote in her own obituary that her proudest moment was working on the off-leash committee. So she worked a lot with dogs and open space and volunteered at the hospital and so on. And we send our condolences to her husband, Joe Teixeira, who chairs our Conservation Commission, and their extended family. So let's please have a moment of silence for these two people. Thank you. Thank you. Let's call the roll.
Roll for the meeting of November 30th. Councilor Vogel.
Present.
Councilor Wallace.
Present.
Councilor Zeid.
Here.
Councilor Devlin.
Here.
Councilor Khan.
Present.
And Councilor Lane.
Here.
Councilor McCauley.
Here.
Councilor Connell.
Councilor Connell.
Councilor Connell, you're muted. We'll come back. Councilor Shand.
Present. Sorry.
Okay. Councilor Connell's here. Councilor Shand.
Present.
Councilor Tantar.
Present.
And Council President Eigenman. We have a full house.
Great, thank you. Late filed items.
There are two items, Mr. President. The first is the order 223 that I sent around this afternoon, which is the preservation restriction on the Custom House. And there are two supporting documents that come with that. And then also there's an application 16, which was previously submitted. However, this is with signatures from police, fire, and DPS. And I thought it best that we submit it. There are those two late files, and that's it.
Thank you. What's the council wish to do? Anyone want to accept them?
Motion to accept the late files. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, so that will, one will go in communications under 11 and the other goes under orders 13. Now let's go to public comment. I know at least one person who wants to speak, but if there are others who wish to speak, please raise your hand electronically. Give your name and home address, and you each get 2 minutes. So first, I was going to call on our veterans agent, Kevin Hunt. Kevin, are you there? I think you're self-muted. There you are. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, President Eigenman, and thank you, City Council members. As the veteran officer for the City of Newburyport, I would like to lend support to a proposal which will be presented tonight by Councilor Khan. That proposal will offer tax abatements, real estate tax abatements, to the parents of veterans who were killed in wartime action. That's a small measure of their loss and a very worthy acknowledgement from the city. If the Veterans Office can be of any assistance to any of you and while you make your decision, please reach out to us. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you very much, Agent Hunt. Next is Juliet Walker. Whoop.
Am I
Go ahead.
unmuted now? Okay. Juliet Walker, 13 Eagle Street. Good evening, counselors. I have two quick items I just wanted to speak on tonight. Specifically, the ordinance, recommended amendments to the ordinance related to snow, slush, and ice. I believe this will be referred to committee, but I'm speaking for myself as well as Livable Streets that I'm a member of. And we've been working for a number of years on tracking where snow is not cleared and particularly how that impacts safe pedestrian travel around the city. So I was very pleased to see this proposed amendments from Councilors Khan and Wallace, and I know there'll be opportunity to comment more on that, and we certainly would appreciate that opportunity. And then I also wanted to just generally support the ideas proposed by the chairs of the Public Safety Committee in their memorandum to the council, noting some of the best practices related to traffic calming and slowing of speeds in the city. And I wanted to just highlight that I think it's particularly important as a city who has a complete streets policy that we look at focusing beyond just education and enforcement to slow speeds. We really need to look at how we can better design our streets to change behavior. Enforcement only goes so far. We have limited resources. Education only goes so far. Ultimately, it's the road design that impacts how fast people travel. And I was really pleased to see some of the recommendations in that regard. I would also say that Livable Streets has been advocating for some temporary improvements to our roads, particularly since the pandemic started. We've seen a lot more activity on our streets, pedestrians and bicycles alike, as well as continued use of our roads by the regular traffic, motor vehicle traffic. There are grants available at the state level. We really hope that the city will take advantage of that can help us do some temporary improvements without investing a lot of permanent capital investment to see how temporary changes can really impact our roads and sidewalk network. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then I have Stephen Kearns. Name and address, please.
Sure, thanks. Stephen Kearns, 79 Mosley Avenue, Newburyport. I can't really add too much to the comments that were just made. They were excellent, and they touch on very many of the same areas that I was going to comment on. Thanks for inviting me to this meeting tonight. I have been active for the last 2 or 3 years trying to advocate to get sidewalks for the lower part of Mosley Avenue, which it's just very hard to believe that, you know, there's still no sidewalks here from, you know, where I guess, I forget the name of the street at the moment, but the lower part of the street, that there's just no sidewalks in between, like Chain Bridge going all the way down to the Rotary. And in the last month, we've actually had the situation of having some 25-mile-an-hour signs added in, which have actually improved things quite a bit. They seem to be more observed at nighttime, maybe not so much in the morning. But you know, I've made some suggestions about actually adding what you see maybe on the other end of High Street, where you actually have it blink, announcing what speed you're traveling at. And I think, as the speaker before me had mentioned, we really have to look beyond some of the past practices and look at other communities and what they're doing, where we could actually make some improvements here. And it actually would not be a whole lot of money, but it could actually further make the streets safer and improve what we're doing. So sorry for the rambling introduction. I only heard about the meeting about 20 minutes ago, but thanks for allowing me to speak. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Ritch Winokur.
Good evening, councilors. Ritch Winokur, 60 Longfellow Drive. I have a similar item to discuss as the previous two speakers, and was able to speak to the public safety meeting a couple of weeks ago. The recent change of the sign on Hale Street from 35 to 25 has created a condition where there was already aggressive tailgating on that street. I travel that street every morning to work and every evening from work. The change now with the sign dropping 10 miles per hour has made that problem worse. People are aggressively tailgating me and members of my family on that road, and I'm sure other people. I've been passed now twice on the double line on that street, and I feel like definitely one of those blinking signs would help, maybe alert people to the fact that that speed limit has changed. But I fear that it's creating a possibly dangerous situation with the way people are driving aggressively on that road. I was able this morning when I was passed on the double line to, I have noticed in increased police presence, and I appreciate that. I don't know if that's enough. I think some kind of notification stating more clearly what the speed limit is, because people are used to driving pretty fast down that road, is possibly in order. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are all the hands that I saw up, so I will check one last time and close public comment. So let's go to mayor's comment. Let me recognize the mayor. Mayor Holaday, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Thank you. Yes, please go ahead.
Good evening, President Eigerman, members of the City Council. I wanted to first hope you all had a nice, small, intimate, quiet Thanksgiving, and that all of you will remain safe and healthy as our COVID numbers are skyrocketing. And this is very serious about where we are. There's data in my update to you, but the bottom line is that I believe we will be moving out of red, even though several weeks ago we were, in the white, then went to yellow. They moved us to red. They changed the criteria. We moved back to yellow. And based on our numbers over the last, just since Wednesday, we've had 47 positive cases. Now, some of those are clusters in long-term care facilities, and Frank and our health department is working very closely with the owners of the long-term care facility and, on their management of cases there. But this still is very concerning, and a lot of these cases are coming from families. Somebody brings it home, goes through the family, and this is where we are. So, we've hired some more contract tracers. We're trying very hard to get the information out to the public. I'll do an updated PSA again this week. Also, we'll be on Local Pulse talking about our COVID numbers. It's absolutely critical that people really follow guidelines. I just can't emphasize this enough. It's just really disappointing to see our cases double in the past 4 to 6 weeks. And all the information that we're receiving, as you are receiving, is that it's going to get worse. So obviously real concerns there. And we will continue to update our website with numbers as they come in and we confirm these cases. Would like to thank Budget and Finance for your unanimous support of the tax rate that I recommended to you this year. We all are aware that there are a lot of families and businesses that are struggling, and wanted to do what we could to try and present the lowest tax rate possible that would still meet the city's overall needs. And that's why we put forward a 1%. And with the support of our new growth, we are able to put this forward. I understand there were no comments during the tax hearing earlier, and I really strongly recommend that you approve the tax rate of 1% and a factor of 1. And thank you for your work on that. A couple other quick updates. Very, very happy to report at the wastewater treatment facility, the Shoreline Resiliency Project, that the low bid from George R. Cairns and Son, who Jordy's already checked the references, excellent references. GCA's worked with them before. Their bid came in at $999,442, which was below our 1.2, which was the original estimate. So that is good because GZA, who will be functioning as our construction management, if you will, our OPM on the project. And their rate came in at 91,738. So it's a little higher than we anticipated. So with the reduction in the low bid and that cost, it gives us a little more breathing room in terms of contingency and able to cover GZA's contract. And both of those contracts were signed today. Parker Street Shared Use Path and the Complete Streets, Aquiline has completed their scheduled work for the construction season, which included grading and drainage, curbing, and setting the foundational work for the Hawk signal, which is scheduled to be installed later in December. And we all will be very happy to see that signal put up at the bottom of State Street. In terms of state routes to school, I know it's been a very long, difficult project. I'm hoping that with the equipment being moved, some of the larger equipment onto High Street and stored there, that it's causing less issues for the residents in Ward 3. But the sidewalks, if you can really start to see the project coming together, and the sidewalks are looking really, really nice there. So they will be finishing up some work over the next several weeks, and then they will be back to finish the project in the spring. I'd also like to offer my deepest congratulations to Roseanne Robillard on her retirement. We did a car parade for her the Friday before Thanksgiving. A lot of people she has served over the 27 years drove through, and just incredibly proud of the work that she has given the city, and the fact that she provided services for 2 decades of that time out of the Salvation Army, which was not the ideal space to be providing services to seniors. So congratulations to Roseanne, to her dedication, her commitment to our elders, and we wish you all the best in your retirement. I also just wanted to take a minute, and because it has been such a unique year, to say the least, that our staff have worked really, really hard, have been incredibly flexible. And as we're approaching the holiday spirit, I just think it's really important to say thank you to all of the city staff and how hard they have worked to keep all of our city services at the highest level possible during this pandemic. I just can't say enough about our staff and how hard they are working. I would also like to mention the Chamber of Commerce and the Rotary for their Santa Parade, that they came up with an alternative to the thousands of people who crowded into Market Square for our annual tree lighting. And I thought it was very successful. And I would say that most of the people were with their families, social distancing, and the faces on the little children across the city made it all worth it. It was really a nice day. I also thought that in particular, our first responders, hospital workers continue to receive a lot of recognition, but I wanted to also recognize our staff at DPS, who again have worked, day in, day out, responding to emergencies, and have done a tremendous amount of work since in these conditions during a pandemic. So I provided you with an attachment to my update with a list of the work that they have completed during this pandemic. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Questions for the mayor? Please raise your hand if you have any. I'm sorry that the city council, not the members of the public, I should have said. Thank you very much, Mayor.
You're welcome.
So on to the consent agenda.
Which consists this evening of the approval of the minutes for November 9th. There are 2 communications. Communication 279 on the city council email account. Am I to understand that that is removed at the request of Councilor Khan?
It is. She has her hand up. Councilor Khan?
Yeah, just motion to remove from the consent agenda and put into.
Yeah, you don't need to move. I mean, it just.
Okay, I'd like to request that. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
I've got that as out in the regular agenda. Then we have the application 16, Old South Christmas Eve on Federal Street. That's to go to public safety.
Yep.
We also have two transfers. Transfer 86, which is from the Waterfront Parking Fund, 3,800 to parking maintenance, same amount. That's to go to Budget and Finance. We have transfer 87, which is revolving account, 2,500 to the fence mural project at the State Street parking lot, 2,500. That's also to go to Budget and Finance. We have one appointment 199, Kevin Wallace, 40 Oak Street, to the Fruit Street Historic Commission until 11/30/2023. Following items are removed from their respective committees. Budget and Finance, Order 219, 220, and Ordinance 65. Planning and Development, Order 196. Public Safety, Communication 275, 276, and 254. Application 12 and Communication 221. All 5 removed from Public Safety, and that's the consent agenda this evening.
Motion to approve consent agenda as amended.
There's a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 It's unanimous, so that's adopted. Mayor's update.
Motion to receive and file.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Now we can get to the communication. So we have the application supplement for the Old South.
That is, Mr. President, nothing more than the same thing that came in through consent with the 3 signatures of police, fire, and DPS.
Okay, how about a motion to send it to public safety?
Yes. Motion to move to public safety.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and then we have the memorandum. Could you describe that, Clerk Jones?
I can, give me 1 second. It is right here. It's Communication 279. It is with respect to the use of Newburyport email accounts. It's from Councilor Khan and Shan to all city councilors that they speak with respect to the open meeting law. They feel that, and the public records law, and certain accessibility and consistency, that there would be a dedicated email address known as citycouncil@cityofnewburyport.com that would be used for all that wish to contact the city council all at once, if you will. And I think it's as simple as that.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Khan.
Yes, thank you, Council President. I just wanted to introduce this before it goes right into the Rules Committee. And, you know, the purpose of the communication, I think it's.
Well, hold on. So you're going to move to send it to rules, right?
Yes, yeah, motion to send to the Rules Committee.
Second.
Second by,
I second.
second by Councilor Vogel. Go ahead, Councilor.
Yeah, my apologies, yes.
No big deal. Yeah.
No, I guess really the purpose is, you know, we could have introduced a rule, but I think the better maybe method would be to have a conversation. I know many of us have talked either one-on-one or at some of the retreats on the usage of a cityofnewburyport.com email address, you know, to kind of migrate towards that for all counselors. And this really came about in a couple of things I was trying to do, and that was to facilitate communication to a citycouncil@cityofnewburyport.com email address to make it easy for residents to reach out, as opposed to putting emails for all of us or trying to find them for all of us. So I'm looking forward to a good conversation on this. I'm not sure if we need to make it a committee of the whole, but if folks feel like we should, I'm very much open to, in that referral, to also making a committee of the whole if everyone feels like that's really a place to contribute from all 11 people here. So so I'll leave it to that. If people want to, for now, I'm referring to the Rules Committee, and I hope we can have a good discussion on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you. Other councilors? Okay, on the motion to refer to rules, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? So that's referred. Thank you. Second reading appointment.
So we have the appointment 198, Elaine Paglia, 39 Jefferson Street, to the Council on Aging until 5/31/2025. Second read.
Motion to approve.
There's a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Roll call.
Roll call on the second reading for the appointment. Councilor Vogel,
Yes.
Counselor Wallace,
Yes.
Counselor Zeid,
Yes.
Counselor Devlin,
Yes.
Counselor Khan,
Yes.
Counselor Lane,
Yes.
Counselor McCauley,
Yes.
Counselor Connell,
Yes.
Counselor Shan,
Yes.
Counselor Tontar,
Yes.
and Counselor Eigenman.
Yes.
Wonderful, 11-0.
Okay, orders, Mass Veterans Brave Act.
We have an order submitted by Counselor Khan that is to accept the provisions of the Mass Veterans Brave Act, so-called Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 22H, which is a property tax exemption for Gold Star parents and guardians, and Clause 22G, which is entitled Eligibility for Veterans Property when Ownership is under a Trusteeship. I don't think I need to read all the whereases unless you wish me to, but
No,
that is
that's
the
okay.
essence.
Counselor Khan,
Yes. Motion to refer to Budget and Finance.
Second.
discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that's referred. And then we have the Custom House Preservation Restriction.
It is a late file. It is the amended and restated preservation restriction from by and between the Newburyport Maritime Society, Inc. and the city of Newburyport with respect to that known as the Custom House. And there is also a red line version for those that wish to look at it. And there's also comments from the Mass Historic Commission.
Motion to refer to Planning and Development.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of referring, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so that's a Planning and Development. I think we're on to ordinances.
We have a second reading of Ordinance 54, which is to enforce the state building code. It is jointly submitted, Councilors Eigenman and Shan. First reading was on November 9th. It states the obvious with respect to incorporating, if you will, locally the state building code.
There a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve on second reading?
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Roll call on second reading of Ordinance 54, Councilor Vogel,
Yes.
Councilor Wallace,
Yes.
Councilor Zeid,
Yes.
and Councilor Devlin,
Yes.
and Councilor Khan,
Yes.
Councilor Lane,
Yes.
Councilor McCauley,
Yes.
Councilor Connell,
Yes.
Councilor Shan,
Yes.
Councilor Tontar,
Yes.
and Councilor Eigenman.
Yes,
Ordinance passes on second reading.
thank you. And we have a new one.
We do have a new ordinance 66, which is an ordinance to amend the code with respect to snow, slush, and ice, with respect to throwing snow and ice into streets, removal of snow and ice from sidewalks, and the time therein within which one should do it. And that is jointly submitted Councilors Khan and Wallace.
Counselor Khan.
Motion to refer to Public Safety.
Second.
Okay. So now Counselor Khan.
Yes, thank you. Actually, I will defer to Councilor Wallace and if she'd like to introduce.
Counselor Wallace, did you want to speak?
No, not at this time. I mean, as long as, it gets referred to Public Safety where we will vet it further there.
Okay. Further comments, Counselor Connell.
Yes, briefly, I would just make a request to the committee chair, since this is going to committee, that they also look at the edits that are being made to the ordinances. And snow and ice removal is one of those things we're looking at, and take this into consideration during your deliberations in committee.
I have a question. Does it actually go to public safety or does it go to neighborhood and city service? Just looking at the code, Clerk Jones. Because remember
That's what I thought.
yeah.
I could answer that.
Go
The
ahead.
reason that we would like it to go to Public Safety is because the The DPS snow and ice plan is currently in committee there as well. So
Okay.
these would be in committee at the same time, and we've already addressed snow removal extensively there. So we would like to kind of keep the theme going and do it all together.
Okay. All right. I'm just looking at the assignments here. Yeah, I think we misdirected the snow plan, just for the record. Actually, we sent it to the wrong committee. It's my fault. I didn't catch it. The code actually only gives public safety, parking and traffic, but doesn't, the other responsibilities of DPS or neighborhood and city service. So I apologize for that. What is the Councilor Khan? Go ahead.
Thank you, Council President. I actually want to refer to neighborhood and city services, and this was kind of one of the co-sponsor and I were talking a little bit about. I wouldn't mind at all actually moving it over to neighborhood and city services, and if my sponsor agrees. But I do think that I too also wondered about that when I was delving into the looking at our charter and where it would make sense to go.
Okay, well, there's a couple things we can do. The membership on neighborhood city service, Chair Connell, who's on your committee these days?
Myself, Councilor McCauley, and Councilor Lane.
Councilor Lane. Okay, so there.
No,
No, am I
Counselor
wrong?
Wallace.
Councilor Wallace. All right, so
Councilor
two.
Wallace.
So
I
there's.
apologize, Councilor.
That's okay. So there's two. Yeah, I mean that wasn't fair. I threw you the wolves
Yeah,
there.
it was.
Yeah, all right, but so there's actually overlap of two counselors then.
Yeah.
Two of the counselors serve on both, so it probably wouldn't be a problem. Or you could make it a meeting of both committees, but that's kind of a pain. So the reason why I'm making a big deal of this is because it's actually written into the code. It's not a rule. We can't waive it. It's written into the municipal code. So I think Councilor Wallace, go ahead.
Sure, I would refer to Chair McCauley because the snow and ice plan is currently in committee for public safety. So I'd be curious to get his thoughts on how he would like to continue.
Councilor McCauley, what do you want to do?
I would like it to go to neighborhood and city services.
Okay.
I was surprised the original plan came to us, but it came there. So we're trying to deal with it expeditiously. So in this particular case, I would suggest we refer it to neighborhood and city services, and at the next meeting, we can take out the snow and ice plan, send it to neighborhood and city services as well.
And Mr. President, if I might, I mean, when we get to that at the committee items for public safety, we could remove it, waive the rules, and send it over to neighborhood and city services.
Yeah,
So both are in.
I agree.
Okay.
Let's do it that way. Okay, so could I get a fresh motion to refer this ordinance to the neighborhood and city service from someone?
But I'll withdraw my second on the other motion.
Okay,
And then I'll withdraw my original motion. So motion to refer to neighborhood and city services.
Second.
all right, great. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so that's done. And we'll just remind me, Clerk Jones, when we get to the committee.
I will do so.
All right, that's it for ordinances. Now we're on to committee items. Ad hoc economic development, there's been no activity. Committee on waterfront, actually we did have activity. So the RFP has hit the street, the request for proposals, and responses are not back yet. So we're hopeful that we'll get some good ones for the design of the expansion of Market Landing Park. So that's underway. Budget and finance.
Motion to approve order 219, which is setting of the residential factor.
Second.
Discussion? Go ahead, Chair.
Yeah, in committee, this came into us from the administration with the residential factor blank, as it always does in committee. We discussed it and we voted 3-0 to recommend a residential factor of 1. So a residential factor of 1 means that across all tax classifications, residential, open space, commercial, industrial, and personal property, there will be an equal tax rate. There are a couple rules of thumb actually one rule of thumb is generally if your commercial, industrial, and personal property is not above 20%, most communities will not lower the residential factor and therefore shift more of the burden on commercial industrial. And secondly, councilors may recall that last year there was an increase in commercial industrial assessed values relative to residential values. This year, residential properties have increased 4.7% in assessed values. Industrials increased 0.6%, and commercial 0.2%. So in the past year, the demand for residential real estate has been stronger than the demand for commercial and industrial. And the committee felt it would be wise to keep the residential factor at 1. So we amended this in committee to reflect that.
Thank you. Any other discussion councilors wish to have? I'm not seeing any. Clerk Jones, why don't you just repeat for the record what it is we're voting on exactly? It's not that long. And then we'll do
States this note isn't all property within the city of Newburyport be taxed equally. That the method to determine this percentage of the local tax levy to be assessed by each class of property is established by the adoption of a residential factor of 1 for the fiscal year 2021 in the city of Newburyport and submitted by Councilor Tontar.
Okay, great. Let's do roll call.
I have a motion to approve. Do I second it by?
Councillor Khan.
Thank you. Councilor Vogel,
Yes.
Councilor Wallace,
Yes.
Councilor Zeid,
Yes.
Councilor Devlin,
Yes.
Councilor Khan,
Yes.
Councilor Lane,
Yes.
and Councilor Colley,
Yes.
Councilor Connell,
Yes.
and Councilor Shan,
Yes.
Councilor Tontar,
Yes.
and Council President Eigenman.
Yes,
11-0, motion passes. Setting.
thank you. Chair Tantar, please go ahead.
Motion to approve Order 220, which is the setting of the tax rate.
Second.
Mr. President, in committee, we amended this. Once again, the tax rate was blank when it came from the administration, as is always the case. And in committee, unanimously accepting administration's recommendations, we are setting the tax rate at $12.64 per thousand, as noted before, across all tax classifications. Let me just spend a moment saying how we got there. When we constructed the budget, we being the council and administration, we built it on the basis of a 2.5% increase in property taxes. That would generate approximately $1.4 million in increased tax revenue. When we received new growth figures and more information since we passed the budget in September, that included approximately $300,000 in additional state aid, new growth of $275,000. The council cut $115,000. We took some of that back to pay for the technical school, the additional students, so that amount to almost $98,000 from council cuts. And also local receipts came in higher in the first quarter of the fiscal year by about $52,000. So, and then reserve for abatements was used as a sort of an accounting basis to round it out to get down to 1%. So the property tax increase is 1% across all categories. That just to give you an idea of what that means for tax holders in the city, taxpayers in the city. The median assessed value of a single family house last year, fiscal year 20, was $557,150. This year, the median assessed value is $578,750. So 1/2 of the 50% of the single families residences valued assessed at $578,750 or below, and 1/2 above that. So the tax bill for a median home in fiscal year 21 is $7,315. The median increase in taxes, if this is approved, is $69. So 1/2 of the residents will have a tax increase of less than $69, and 1/2 will have an increase of over $69. The overall percent change in residential taxes comes to a little over 1%. You get about, let's see, 49% of single family residences will have tax increases that are either negative or less than 1.
Thank you. Further comments, Councillor Shand?
Thanks, Council President. Do you know how that impact is going to be for condominiums? I know condominiums took a larger hit last year with respect to the tax increases, and I know they're slightly different than single family homes. So just curious.
So hold it, I'm looking for it right now. The increase, I don't have the numbers for condominiums. Whereas single family assessed values overall increased by 4.2%, condominiums increased by 6.9%. The finance director has indicated that that all properties will be listed on the website in table form, not map form, so people can check to see what it is. I don't. I think the assessor, Jill, is available to answer questions. I don't know if she could handle that question.
Is there anyone on staff who wants to answer the question about condominiums versus single family homes? Don't all answer at once. No, I don't think anyone is volunteering.
I think Jill has raised her hand.
Oh, here she is. Yes. Sorry, I didn't. So that must be Jill Brennan. Jill Brennan.
Oh.
Are you on? I think you're self-muted.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I am now. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't have exact numbers for you. I just brought working remotely. I just have the total increase for the class that Charlie gave you too. But I can get you those numbers tomorrow.
Thank you, Jill.
Yeah, I can give you median in average, the increases from FY20 to FY21.
Well, if I could, I'll just ask, because I live in a condo. So why do condos go up higher? Why do they go up faster?
Well, it's all based on market. So condos, you have to remember that we had 66 new condo units that came on the market this year. And the average, that's why our new growth was so high too.
Yeah.
The average, I think, was 998,000 that we have them assessed for. So the new ones that are coming on the market are high end, you know, that have been remodeled and selling for a lot. You know, the old Kelly School, that's a good example right there. So that gets used in our analysis when we do our market analysis. And we have to make those increases across the board. But all sales really for condos were up again. And the year that we used for all residential, all commercial was 2019. So, we haven't even looked at 2020 yet. 2020 will be affecting FY22 assessments. So based on mainly market, I will say that we had, high improvements based on building permits also too, which are reflected there too. So, but mostly it's the market that we have to compare to.
Great. All right. Thank you. Councillor Zeid.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to say that, I think that this is, I supported this in committee, and I think that this is and will be a positive thing for the taxpayers. This is a tough year for a variety of reasons, or maybe obvious reasons, as we all live through it together. And so offering what is, as close to flat as one could hopefully hope for is a good thing, and something that's totally supportable. With that being said, I just want to make it clear that what we are doing, what we aren't doing. So we're blunting the increase for this year and this year only, and we're doing that by taking some other money that we were fortunate enough to get by way of, as was just mentioned, an increase in things like new growth and so forth. So those things are variable, and when they come in better, we, at least have the opportunity, whether we choose to or not, it's another story, but we have the opportunity to blunt the tax increase. But that's going to catch up with us next year. When we have this discussion again next year, the levy, which is ultimately what the total tax base is, still going up by 2.5%. And that's because that's what the budget was built on. And we talked about this briefly in committee, but we're just oddly enough, or ironically enough, just about to start another budget cycle, since we're now in infinite budgeting and we never stop and we never start. It's a loop. And so the question is going to be, I think, what do we want to do next year? Because if we have a 2.5 next year on top of a 2.5 this year, even though, again, successfully and positively, we've been able to blunt that increase a little bit this year, we're just stacking it up. And so that's the question, I think, that looms over us for next year's budget. But I think the taxpayers hopefully will take some comfort in knowing that we did everything we could this year to bring this down as close as we could to flat or near flat, across the board. And obviously, as the chair mentioned, obviously there are averages and means and medians, which all have an impact on what an individual taxpayer may see. But from that high level, bringing it to that 1% number, I think is a positive thing. And I look forward to voting yes. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Other councilors, and thanks again to Jill Brennan for jumping on. Other councilors? Roll call.
Roll call on setting the tax rate at 12.64. Councilor Vogel,
Yes.
Councilor Wallace,
Yes.
Councilor Zeid,
Yes.
Councilor Devlin,
Yes.
Councilor Khan,
Yes.
Councilor Lane,
Yes.
Councilor McCauley,
Yes.
Councilor Connell,
Yes.
Councilor Shan,
Yes.
Councilor Tantar,
Yes.
Councilor Agaman,
Yes.
11-0.
Thank you. Chair Tantar.
Motion to approve ordinance 65.
Second.
Tell us about this one.
Yeah, as I understand it, this is bringing ordinances in line with what we passed last year. I think it was last year. Councilor Khan is on the committee that is reviewing ordinances and picked this up, and I would defer to her if she wishes to speak to this.
Councilor Khan.
Yeah, thank you, Council President. And so this is actually when we passed the Municipal Modernization Act. It was actually in 2017. We also accepted the new minimum wage increases that were part of the Modernization Act. And what that had done is, I think it went from $8 to $12. And so we could, what the Senior Tax Work-Off Program, which gets about 60 people per year participating, we had it previously at 1,000. And again, it's kind of based on 120 hours allowed, which is really in the Massachusetts general laws. And so this would bring it kind of match exactly kind of what was done in 17. And this was caught during the ordinance review committee efforts. We could have waited and brought it next year, but part of the reason I want to jump ahead and get this kind of codified now is there's a lot of the literature, marketing literature information on the Council of Aging's website that's a little misleading, and I just want to kind of clean it all up, which was one of the reasons to bring it now. I do want to make an amendment, and that's to change MGLA to MGL, Massachusetts General Laws. Might as well get that one done now. It's one of the things we're talking about in the Ordinance Review Committee in terms of being consistent with how we talk about the Massachusetts General Laws. Thank you.
I'll second that one. Any other discussion on the amendments? The amendment is to change from MGLA to MGL. All those in favor say aye. The amendment.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Is there any more discussion on the ordinance, first reading? No. Roll call.
Roll call on the approval of ordinance 65 as amended. Councilor Vogel,
Yes.
Councilor Wallace,
Yes.
Councilor Zeid,
Yes.
Councilor Devlin,
Yes.
Councilor Khan,
Yes.
and Councilor Lane.
Yes.
Macaulay,
Yes.
Councilor Connell,
Yes.
Councilor Shan,
Yes.
Councilor Tontar,
Yes.
and Council President Igerman.
Yes.
Wonderful.
All right. Chair Tontar, is that it?
That's it, Mr. President.
All right. Thank you. Education, Chair Khan.
Yes, thank you, Council President. Our next meeting is going to be on Monday, December 7th at 5:30 p.m. I am meeting with my co-chair tomorrow. I think I mentioned before, one of the things we're doing is looking at the acts of 1987, talking with the school committee member, Reardon, and we're going to sit down together to have something presented for the education committee in terms of how the budget process is done for the schools, how does that map to our timeline, and how the acts of 1987 would actually complement or have some pros and cons associated with that. So that meeting is next week on Monday at 5:30 p.m. We have been trying to meet with the in person. I think last time we were at the high school. I believe we'll be at the senior center. I'll be checking in to see if we're still going to be meeting in person, but if the school committee is, my understanding is that the education committee will try to do the same, but I will keep people posted and give an update on that. If anyone's interested, send me an email and I'll let you know. Thank you.
Thank you. General government, I'll give a report on that. We did actually meet a couple of weeks ago, finally, to sort of wrap up our suggestions from the to the full council based on the charter review report that came in May 1st. So we're having another meeting on Thursday at 6 p.m., public meeting. And what we agreed, the members of the committee, including the mayor ex officio, we're just going to swap our suggestions for major and minor changes. So the major changes are ones that both the city council and the mayor have to agree to send either to the voters or to the state legislature, or both. And then minor ones, things that don't affect sort of term length of terms or term limits or things like that, we could do at the city council. So we're going to exchange our lists at that meeting for those who are interested. And then we'll bring back whatever we come up with to the full council. Licenses and permits. Chair Devlin, anything going on there?
Nothing to report. Am I on mute? Nothing to
Oh,
report.
you're on.
Great. Nothing to report.
Okay. Neighborhood and city service.
Nothing to report tonight.
Okay. Planning and development.
Motion to return order 196 back to planning and development.
Second.
Because it was already out, right? Is that
Right.
okay? Any discussion on that one?
Yes, reason being, I spoke with Director Port today and we were expecting the state's comments back this week. And I also was told that what was uploaded to the city site didn't have all the corrections in it. So I figured at this point, let's get the state comments back, do a once over, and then I don't expect any substantial changes to be made, but it will give an opportunity for our third counselor to actually participate in the discussion again. So we'll do that in our next meeting. So.
And if I could ask, so are you going to be asking us to approve or?
No,
okay,
no.
receive the file. Okay,
Just
but you're going to give us a report.
Just want to make sure that everything that's updated or the requests that were meant to be updated were done correctly. And I don't think all of the parks departments were correctly included on what was put on the city site this past week. So.
Okay, got it. You had a second for sending it back. Did we get a second on that?
Yes,
Yeah.
Council Khan.
Counselor Khan, okay. All those in favor for sending it back, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so that's back. Anything else, Chair Shan?
Nothing tonight, Council President. Thank you.
Thank you. Public safety. Chair McCall.
Thank you, Council President. Do we want to move DPS snow and ice com 269 first?
Yeah, but you have to move to waive the rules because it wasn't in the packet. Not that it really needs to be. So let's do that first.
Okay, make a motion to waive the rules to move communication 269 from public safety to neighborhood and city services.
Second.
Second.
You got a second on that, Clerk Jones?
I
Okay,
do.
so it's a combined motion. We're going to waive the rules because it's not in the packet, and then send it to, bring it out and send it to neighborhood and city service. This has to be a 2/3 supermajority. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? I don't hear any. So it's unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. Go ahead, Chair McCall.
Thank you. Council President, I'd first like to address application 12, a motion to receive and file that. And the reason being is that, motion to receive and file.
I'm sorry, it's application 12. Okay, and there's a second.
Yes.
Explanation.
The chamber has withdrawn this application. And so there's no reason for us to keep it in committee.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor of receiving and filing, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I think that's unanimous. That's what I heard.
Yep. I'd like to address communication 276, a letter from Alex Matthews. I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
To approve. Okay. Discussion?
Alex Matthews is the congregational leader and has asked for permission to install their Hanukkah decorations downtown, and secondly has offered to leave them up through New Year's to coincide with the city's decorations and celebration. In our discussion in committee, we voted 3-0 to approve and accept the decoration extension.
Any other counselor? Okay, so the motion is to approve, and then Counselor Vogel, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think in years past, haven't we've gone through this, it seems like we go this year. I recognize the fact that it's come to us and that we're approving it, and of course we're all in favor of it. It's just that it seems like in years past, haven't we decided that we didn't need to do this? Do I have that right? Does anybody remember? That it was
Well, the only
sort
thing,
of
the only thing that comes to my mind is since we amended we actually amended the code to talk about the Parks Commission for the first time. We did say that Market Square is a park.
Right.
That's all I can think of.
Well, maybe that was it. That was just a comment.
Yeah, let me
Certainly am in favor.
Now, hold on, Counselor Zeid had his hand up. Go ahead, Counselor Zeid.
My recollection is that we do have to approve it, and we have every year. Sometimes we've done it by emergency preamble based on the timing. I think the only time we decided we didn't have to approve was when it was more of somebody just like being out there to talk to people or something that fell under more of a First Amendment kind of thing. That's my recollection anyways.
That may be as well.
Okay, so I got it. So that sounds right. So I think the way we left it, Counselor Vogel, at past years was if someone wanted to hand out leaflets or demonstrate, they don't need our approval. But if they wanted to put up something permanently, we did want to approve it. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
So the motion is to extend that so it's coterminous with our city decorations whenever the tree is up. Everyone understand that? Any other comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Oh, seeing none. All right, so we ran the table this year. That's everyone. Go ahead, Chair McCauley.
Okay, a motion to approve, a motion to receive and file collectively communication 221 and 254.
Your second?
Second.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Council Chair, President. These two communications we've bundled together and added to it. And it is the item of safety and speeding. 221 is a sign on Pine Hill Road that specifically outlines concerns they have about speeding. And we had a series of public meetings and hearings about that. Communication 254 is for Mosley Ave. And again, it's a speeding safety type of issue. We've had additional comments from at the public hearing from Hale Street, Turkey Hill, Johnson Street, High Street, Daniel Lucy Way, Water Street, Federal Street, etc., that all get us to the recommendations that public safety would like to make. What you also have in your packet in pages 45, 46, and 47, you have a memorandum from the Public Safety Committee to the council itself. And the reason that we did that is what we're finding is that speeding has become an issue in the neighborhoods, and it's impactful. And it's impactful for a number of reasons, because people are home more, they observe more, they're using takeout, delivery, foods, and they're, they have intensity to get there in a shortened time frame. All of these things are placing excessive burdens on the neighborhood themselves. So the memo that we recommend and what we've learned through these public hearings is that we need to change behavior. We like to embark on a program of awareness, education, and enforcement, as outlined in the memo itself. And where we started with a receive and file for these two communications, because they started it, we'd like to then end with a memo that we'd also like to receive and file as part of that as well. And I'm not sure if I should make that motion afterwards or before, but that's just the background as to where we are right now.
Okay, well, we can take the motion on the memo later. I have a couple counselors that want to speak, but before we do, because you combine it with 221, I had a question. Originally, the residents on Pine Hill Road were asking for a slow children at play sign. And my understanding is the DPS doesn't actually do those. I tried to get one on Spring Street. Is that what happened there too?
That's what happened there. And part of our recommendation is that we get some signs, speed limit signs, and replace, instead of the slow children sign, put up a speed limit sign. And as you've heard in public comment, to also get an inventory of electronic signs, which will cost money and from different departments, and we should be aware of that. We would want, if we want to proceed with controlling or mitigating speeds, we want to make sure that we approve those budget transfers when they come in.
Thank you. Okay, I'll take the counselors in order that they put their hands up. So first is Councilor Khan.
Yes, thank you, Council President. Mine's more just kind of almost logistics, because, well, first of all, I want to compliment the efforts of the committee, and I think it's an excellent memorandum. My question's more on the procedural aspect of it, also being a chair of a committee, in terms of deliberation and creating something like this. I was curious why it didn't kind of come into our packet as under new material and get kind of put into some place. So to me, this is it confused me a little bit, because I look at the date of the memo is November 24th, 2020, which I don't recall this coming into a packet. Maybe if it did, it could be I'm just confused by that date. So that's my first question, is logistically, how do we bring in something like this and have it go under committee, and understanding also when is this part of the notes of the meetings to make sure that it was done in a way that kind of was in a public setting. So I'm just really curious because I too, on the Acts of 1987, want to do something with my committee, but I was going to do it in part of the meeting. So that's the question I had. Thank you.
Well, as far as what went in the packet this week, because I did that with the clerk, the way I looked at it is I saw the memorandum as a communication from the committee that had grown out of these two items that are before us. So I don't know what motion that the chair is going to make afterward. Right now, we're just doing receive and file on the two items that were in the committee. But I didn't think it was out of order for them to send in a committee report, essentially. If this were an order or an ordinance, yeah, I agree with you. It would have to be introduced and then go through our system. I didn't read it that way, but the chair will correct me. Go ahead, Chair McCauley.
Just to answer, thank you for that. And I would agree with all of that. And then to add onto that is logistically, these were the output of the notes, and we had a specific public safety public meeting last week to review our recommendations prior to confirming the memo that we'd like to send to you as a report. So we've had 4 different meetings on speeding. This was an outgrowth of 3 of those meetings, the 4th one being a wrap up and summary of the notes that we had compiled to build the memo going forward.
Okay. Councillor Khan, does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
All right. Now, Councillor Connell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question of the chair. To what extent were the police involved in those hearings and discussions, since they have the responsibility to enforce?
Police were active participants in the meetings. Representatives from DPS were also present as well to offer their suggestions.
Good. And may I follow, Mr. President?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Because it strikes me that sometimes the informal pathway is most expedient, and particularly when it comes to speeding. It happens occasionally in different parts of the city for different reasons. But if it's a problem in a particular neighborhood, getting those temporary speed signs up, you're going umpty-dump miles per hour, placed in a strategic location, is pretty effective. It's not durable, but for the time period when people see them, they are forced to confront their own behavior and think about speeding in residential neighborhoods. I just wanted to suggest that and wonder if you had suggested it to the police, which have those signs, those speed indicators available. I think there are 2 of them.
Chair McCauley.
Thank you. Councillor, yes, the police have implemented a program that they've matched up police contacts with different ward counselors for coverage.
Right.
And all of those contacts have been very responsive in terms of trying to mitigate speeding and trying either extra patrols, visibility, or moving the speed signs around. What we found in our discussion is we don't have enough signs. So the circle goes like this. People are speeding. They've had enough. They complain. We put up a speed sign. We know that the speeds are high. Because of awareness, they come down to the speed limit. We take the sign away. It lasts for a couple of weeks, and then incrementally it starts rolling up again. And regardless of whether the signs are permanent or they move them around, that's the cycle that we go through. The suggestion and what we uncovered is that there's expensive signs and there's cheaper signs. We'd like to recommend as part of the memo that each ward have 2 signs that they can put in inventory and circulate through their neighborhoods of the cheaper kind that don't, so that and in doing so, would allow more flexibility from the police instead of jumping right away to enforcement, to trying to, confront people on their own terms, right, by having the flashing signs.
Well, I hope it works. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Next is Councillor Vogel. You're muted. Still muted.
Can't hear you.
Yep, sorry. My dog was barking earlier. I
Okay.
shut it off. I'd like to applaud your work. I think that this is an excellent memorandum as well. My question is this: so now what? Is there a follow-up? Is there a check-in? Where does this live, or how does it stay alive?
Sure, Council President, I'd like to respond. So there's two things here. One, there's a memo for medium and longer range solutions and designs that I think that we're all part of. I think our recommendation, if we jump ahead, is that this memo gets forwarded from the clerk to every member of TSAC, as well as the head of DPS, who's also on TSAC. So I think we could cover two birds with one stone there.
Let's deal with that on your next motion.
Yep.
What to do with it.
But to answer your question, the recommendations that we've made on page 2 are immediate, right? We want to have an immediate letter in the Daily News. We want to have a letter go out through possibly through the Chamber of Commerce to restaurants and food delivery companies. We want to reach out to the business park that says, hey, if you have shift employees, a first shift, second shift, and you use the city streets, just a reminder that the speed limit is 25 miles an hour. We've in speaking with police and DPS, they've noted that they may need more signs. They may need in-street bollards. They may need more speed limit signs, none of which are a lot. And NPD has said, again, with the electronic signs, that they could have more. And we think those incremental steps, immediate and visible incremental steps, will continue to stir conversation. I think you heard tonight in public comment, we're aligning the street speed limit signs on the streets today. We took off the ones that were inconsistent, and people noticed them that day. So it is a very visible thing, and everyone wants to comply, and we all make mistakes. And 25 miles an hour is kind of low, which we've all heard, but that's what we're dealing with right now.
If I may just follow up.
Go ahead.
Just so, is the thought that TSAC will just continue to check in? Is that where it's going to live? I'm just curious as to where it's going to continue to live and be looked at and considered.
I think that's our recommendation, but I'd like to have more input at the next version of our debate on what we do with the memo.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry to continue.
That's okay. Councillor Tantar.
Yeah, thank you. Just really one point. When I was a ward council, I get a lot of requests for speed bumps, especially on side roads, not on Merrimack or High Street, of course, but the cross streets. So DPS was involved in your discussions. Are they sort of evolving their position on speed bumps and on streets? The opposition before was the problem was with snow removal equipment, as I recall. I noticed that's not on your list of immediate actions to
yes,
take. But
speed bump. I don't think anyone's really evolving on speed bumps because they create some problems. I think that Councilor Wallace has pushed for, and I know that she wants to talk, but she has pushed for longer range planning, meaning road redesign, crosswalk elevated, those types of things that would be incorporated into the road build versus gluing on a speed bump that, causes some other logistical issues. But if this was the spring and some of these issues were egregious as they were, I think we could talk everyone into speed bumps. But where we're coming on the winter and the potential plowing season, I don't think in this round it's probably appropriate for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wallace.
Thank you. Just to follow up a little bit, what this memo has is just kind of like a listing of ideas that you could do. And I think the ultimate goal is to find a list of whether you want to call them speed mitigation or traffic calming or whatnot, but things that will work for Newburyport. So there might be 4 or 5 different things. But what we're missing right now is we do not have any standard details or any sort of agreement with DPS on, what they would be willing to design in the roads. So I think, so often we talk about this practice or that practice, but I think where we are now is how are we going to get there? I mean, I can't tell you how many meetings I've sat in where we've talked about speed radar signs and speed bumps, et cetera. But I think there's an appetite to move it forward. We just have to take those steps. So that's kind of what we laid out at the end here was, all right, we need to start looking at some standard details that DPS would agree on, maybe the residents would agree on, and maybe some of this needs to be put eventually into some sort of ordinance form. And I think what's very, very important that I want to emphasize is that if we're going to do this and be serious about it, we need to plan ahead before we touch our roadways. So whether it's just a concept plan that goes around, but we just need to make sure that we've got the curbing, the striping, the crosswalks, everything in the right location, so that if you're doing construction, it's not that much more of a cost. We just have to change the behavior, get used to this. It's nothing that's necessarily difficult, but it's a quality of life thing, and ultimately it's a safety thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lane.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, these measures here are going to really help enforcement in the respect that, like, some of these measures, you don't need people on the streets and active enforcement. It's actually going to intrinsically bring this all together. I think this is a great place to start. And like the Councillor Large was saying, where does this live? I think this just keeps on living, and we tackle these solutions one by one. So I'm in support of it. That's why I'm going to vote yes on it, or I'm going to follow it up.
Okay, I'll tell you what. So the motion we have before us is really just to receive and file communications 221 and 254. Let's get into what we're going to do with the memo later. But does anyone else want to speak on that? Receiving and filing of 2 communications? If not, all those in favor of receiving and filing say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so that's behind us. So we did sort of get into the memorandum, and the memorandum on page 2 for benefit of the public includes bolded recommendations. So I would entertain a motion. What do we do with this thing? The choices are, you can just receive and file it, and then everyone's on. It exists. It's in our minutes for all time, but it's up to individual counselors or the public safety chair or whomever to implement. It's just for our information. That's one way you could go. Another thing we can do without having an order, we have in the past had motions where we hear a report from a committee, and then we instruct our clerk to write a letter. We've done that. We could do that. We could instruct the clerk to send this along to, I don't know, the DPS director or TSAC or both. So that's kind of the palette of things we can do. Now it's your turn. What do you want to do? Councillor McCall.
So, okay, from the public safety standpoint, we'd like to receive and file this. We will and ask the clerk to send this to every member of TSAC along the way. As part of this discussion, we plan to, in public safety, to keep this top of mind. And most of the things that we do and look at from a traffic perspective going forward. So, for example, I plan to write the letter to the Daily News, just informative, to say this is what we've discussed and decided, and as part of our awareness, awareness education campaign, we want to make sure everyone is aware that the speed limit is 25. We want to make sure that you're aware that we're now going to ask the police department to be more visible in their enforcement along the way. So that's what we think would probably be the best place to do it prior to moving this to an ordinance.
Okay, so I heard a motion to receive and file and directing the clerk to send a copy to every member of the Transportation Safety Advisory Committee. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Okay, discussion on that move? Not seeing any. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so that's what we'll do, and the clerk, thank you, Clerk Jones, please send that along.
Will do.
And I guess just copy the chair of public safety. Anything else from public safety?
Yes, Council President, we have communication 275, which was a letter from Jim McCarthy with regard to safety issues at the Route 1 Rotary and Rail Trail. In your packet, specifically, there were diagrams 64, 65, and 66. We'd like to make a motion to receive and file motion to receive and file.
Your second? Okay, all those in favor? Well, I'm sorry, discussion. Any further discussion on the results?
Yes. So we think that inherently what we've uncovered as part of our committee meeting is that there may have been a breakdown in the process. This seems to be a process issue as much as anything else. Just for the sake of conversation, as background, this is the area along Parker Street. It crosses State Street, which is work being done today. And as we heard from the mayor's update, that work from the subcontractor has been completed or will be completed up until it crosses State Street next to the courthouse in Pomodori. The plan, as it currently stands, is for the city to get itself included into the Rotary Route 1 repaving plan from Mass DOT. And that would take the rail trail from the Hawk signal that will be installed on the corner of Parker and State Street in front of Pomodori, on top, out into the Rotary, where the, and that would be on page 65, out into the Rotary where they would extend the sidewalk and curbing out 5 feet or so along the way. I think that has some impacts for the restaurant that's there. It would impact both their entrance and exit to their smaller parking lot. It is part of Mass DOT's plan to shrink the Rotary. They plan to do most of it through striping as opposed to curbing. And then they would put a crossing at the edge of the Rotary right there as opposed to further down Route 1. There were a number of discussion items about that. The city engineer raised some site issues along the way. So that's the plan as we stand today. We think that was different than the plan that we had a perception of, that would run the rail trail through the Parker Street extension behind Pomodori and then coming out by Hill Street, or Cherry Hill Street rather, and then crossing Route 1 there. So we've compiled a list of recommendations through both the city engineer and Jim McCarthy as well, and have submitted them through the planning office into Mass DOT. We're asking for a public hearing to continue this from the Mass DOT project manager. I'm not sure it's going to be a true public hearing, but it'll be some sort of public hearing. We've submitted, my understanding is planning has submitted these comments and recommendations to Mass DOT along the way. I think the only item that I think we should be sensitive to is that this, and where we think sometimes the process breaks down, is that none of the abutters on the circle, especially Pomodori in particular, have been approached by this plan. So the plan is at maybe 75% completion, and none of the abutters are aware of it. We think that's a concern. You know, they would want to have their inputs appropriately, as it will, that, you know, that repaving of that rotary and the restriping of it will have an impact on the traffic flow going forward.
All right, so let me make sure I understand. So this is a 75% design that's been approved by Mass DOT or not?
I believe so, yes. Councilor Wallace, is that what we're hearing?
It has not been approved by Mass DOT. It's probably been submitted to Mass DOT.
All right,
But
so
they
it's
are
not,
in the they are in the 75% design stage. Actually, just a little bit of background. I think that this initially was just a pavement project, so it didn't necessarily follow the same, you know, percentages and design hearings as a full project. But it's moving into more than a pavement project because there's curbing and there's this crossing now. So this might have been a 25-75, but yes, it is a 75. And from what we don't know yet is the timing of when Mass Dot will, you know, have comments or whatnot. That was the sense I got from the planning department.
okay, let me recognize Director Port. Director Port, can you shed some light on this?
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I just wanted to clarify for the record, the Mass DOT is doing this paving project. They're planning about a year from now. That may add 6 months, depending on how the schedule goes with these projects. But they're planning on rolling in, as Councilor Wallace said, pedestrian improvements, this crossing that the city's been asking for a while to the old Parker Street right away. They're planning on trying to insert that into that project as best they can, given the limited budget for the paving project. They're also required under their own regulations, their own guidelines, to incorporate pedestrian and multimodal crossings in their transportation projects. Now it's actually a requirement in their own guidelines. So that's part of the reason why they're doing that. But unless additional funds are put towards it, we're getting, you know, the crossing they're proposing, which is solving the majority of the crossing issue. It does not really address the dynamics of the rotary itself. And they're not planning on significantly revising these plans at this point, unless we, you know, take that conversation further, whether it be a meeting with the city, you know, and the general public to talk about that. They are planning on implementing the improvements as shown on that plan with you know, a few modifications essentially, because it's meant to skip the lengthy process, these 25, 75%, 100% design processes the local communities go through, and have it embedded into a repaving project up Route 1, which they've been doing.
Okay, but you said it's a year away. So you're saying they plan to actually have bulldozers out there and do this work in December of 2021?
Well, it could be a year to 18 months from now, but approximately that time frame is what they're aiming for.
Okay, but the contracts have not been let yet.
Correct.
Okay. All right, let me hold on. Why don't you hold the line, and then we recognize Councilor Khan.
Yeah, thank you, Council President. I remember back in May, end of May, going to a public hearing. It was more on the Parker Street shared use path, but we also talked about the Hawk pedestrian signal lighting and a couple of other things, and it was done by the planning department. And a part of me in trying to understand like the process, notification to abutters, maybe communication to public safety chair about these meetings. I do wonder if there's a way for earlier engagement. And I do remember some of these plans being discussed in that meeting back in May. So I'm just, I kind of hear what the chair of public safety is saying in terms of kind of bringing in players earlier than later, and how could we get that notification from the city, maybe reaching out to some of the chairs of like public safety for sure, or planning and development, and just an idea on maybe moving forward.
Well, let me ask Director Port. So the hearing that was referred to, or maybe Chief of Staff Coogan, I'll let him talk to. The meeting that was done in May, I also thought that that was about the State Street portion of this. Did they also have this drawing at that time?
No, you're correct. That meeting was about this Parker State Street crossing. What we did at that time, as I recall, and I think it was one of the visuals I pulled up, was to illustrate how that was meant to intersect what we were hearing Mass DOT was planning for the rotary crossing.
Okay, so this is really, and that's really a city project, whereas this is a Mass DOT project that we're piggybacking on, right?
That's exactly correct.
Okay. Chief Coogan, did you want to add anything?
No, I think that was Andy just answered it.
Okay.
It's not our project, so some of it's within our control. And I know this has been ongoing for years, trying to get MassDOT to clean up that rotary. There's an opportunity now because they're making their way northward and repaving to do some improvements, but albeit minimal. And that's kind of what we've been working on with MassDOT, is to try to cajole them to make some more improvements while they're here.
Okay. Councilor Khan.
Sorry, I did have a follow-up on that, but
ahead.
Mass DOT was one of the presenters, and I remember them going through the rotary, that image. So even though it was not something, we talked a little bit about the city, I do remember that presentation, and maybe I'm wrong, but I know there's a recording, which I could look at later. So I guess my more, it's just, I think there are times when just maybe even just communications to the chairs of these committees, that maybe to know that these are happening, or being able to let residents know too, because a lot of people didn't seem to not remember that public hearing happened too, which just in general, just letting residents know when these conversations are happening.
Okay, let me go to Councilor Wallace.
Sure. I just want to add in one other important point, is that the city engineer in Newburyport raised significant safety concerns with putting that hawk signal right outside of the rotary on Route 1, because Route 1 is, it's 2 lanes there, as opposed to State Street where it's 1 lane. And you could have the issue of not having sight distance, and the person decides to cross, and then the second car, hits somebody in a crosswalk. So he has repeatedly raised concerns and been open about it, provided his comments to the planning department. And I think that's still unresolved. And the question is the city going to listen to our city engineer or not? And the notion that, the design is already, it can't change much, Mass Highway or MassDOT's not going to change it that much. I should hope that discussions are still in the works to make sure that whatever we put in there is safe and agreed upon by all parties, so that this is not necessarily a done deal the way that it's designed now. But a public hearing would be helpful to move towards some sort of agreement. Thanks.
Okay, so before we receive and file this, I guess I'm more concerned than I was when it came in. I mean, part of this is at least adjacent to Ward 2. So it's not just that I would like a public hearing so that Pomodori and others know about it, but if our city engineer does not support this design, I'd like to know who's communicating that to Mass DOT. So I guess I'll follow up with the chair on that. Well, hold on. Before I go to Andy Port, let me recognize Councilor Tantar.
Yeah, I just want some clarity on that hawk signal, because aren't they putting the hawk signal up this month in December?
That's on State Street. This would be a second hawk signal that goes right across Route 1.
Gotcha. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Director Port.
Yeah, thank you. Just to clarify, City Engineer John Eric White's comments did go to Mass DOT. As I recall, his comments actually were originally copied to them. So the bottom line is that all these sort of comments are filtered up to Mass DOT. The question is, what are they actually willing to adjust in the plans and what do they think is feasible? So without going into a more lengthy discussion, we originally talked about having the crossing along the old Parker Street right away, so on the other side of the restaurant. Mass DOT did not feel comfortable having that closer to the road or farther away from the rotary because cars would come out of that rotary and have already taken up some speed. So they didn't want to have that visual problem. So what they did was they wanted the crossing and the new hawk signal, which what they proposed on these plans is to move it closer to the rotary. What John Eric had pointed out, there's only one issue I think that's notable in there that the Mass DOT can potentially make an adjustment on, was to see about the 2 lanes there and whether or not anything could be done to adjust that, because one vehicle might block the visual of another a bit. But again, it's a much better crossing location for the pedestrian because there's much better visual for the cars before they come out of the rotary than what we were originally planning, which is using the old Parker Street right of way. These comments are, have all been going to Mass DOT. We have asked them for a public hearing. We would schedule a public hearing on this project, but it seems a little bit awkward for us to do that given it's their project, really, so we're happy to do that with their participation, but other than that, we only have the plans that they're proposing right now.
Okay, well, but there's 2 things going on. So you've asked Mass DOT for a public hearing and that will happen or it won't happen, and you say the comments went to them, but how do we, I feel kind of powerless here. Again, Pomodori and that whole thing is in Ward 2. How do I know it's being resolved? When does this end, Director Ford?
Well, we can check in with Mass DOT and get a formal comment as to the status of the revision of their plans and circle back with you with that detailed information and their time frame as they understand it right now. And then the council could decide how you wish to proceed in that dialogue at that point. We obviously are looking to get them to participate in a public hearing. That would engage, or provide a forum for that. But if we are unsuccessful in that, we can let you know what we are aware of their timeline and details and the plan changes. That way you can decide how you want to engage at that point.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Director Port or for Chair McCauley before we vote on receiving and filing? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Is that it?
That is it, Council President. Thank you for your patience.
No, not at all. It's all important stuff. Public utilities. Anything, Chair Zeid? What's that?
Nothing tonight.
Nothing tonight. Okay. Rules.
Nothing tonight.
Thank you, Chair Vogel. Oh, good of the order. How about a motion to adjourn?
So
move.
Moved. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.